Thank you for joining us for the news review on the AM show. And the news review is brought to you courtesy Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And we're offering free prostate screening and free female fertility screening. The location where you can find us, Accra Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Kronum Abuehia, behind the Angel Educational Complex in Takrady and Naji Estate. In Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa and Esiama Nzima. You can reach us on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But it's only the beginning of the news review, and we started in grand style. I'll be joined shortly by my colleague, Samuel Kojo Brace. Samuel, I hear you're ready. A very good morning to you, bro.
Good morning. I'll be ready for some 10 minutes now.
Oh, I see. Always, I mean, as always, right? Always ready. Were you a Boy Scout growing up?
No, Charlie. Where I grew up, nothing like Boy Scout or whatever. You just get up, go to farm, and
Oh, no, Bugao. Okay. But that's an interesting point to make. Let me just find out from you. I've been reflecting on the happenings in Turkey and Syria following all the damage that has been done. I was listening to the story of one person, a woman who plays for the female team of Haitaspor, the same team that Christian Achu plays for. And she was fortunate, made it out. They actually went back into their building very quickly to grab a few clothes, just about something to put on, a phone here, just a few things, and they dashed out. It's left disaster, absolutely terrifying disaster in its wake. We've still not found Christian Achu, and it's just so sad as of now. Quick reflections on that, and when you're done, maybe you can share with me what you think is your biggest story this week before we get into the papers.
Well, Ben, it's not been an easy week for Ghana. And I guess it's not been an easy week at all for Achu's family, especially for the wife and the kid. Yes, it's a week of torture, really, because for you to wake up from a jubilant mood, because Achu played on Sunday.
Yeah, scored a goal.
For the team in a very sweet style. I mean, this was a free kick that he used to equalize for the team.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was happy, and I'm sure he was on phone with the family, sharing in the mood. We all go to bed, wake up on Monday, and we hear, boom, there's an earthquake in Turkey, and it has affected where Achu lives, and he cannot be found. Jesus. I mean, I'm wondering how the family will take the shock that this is our son, this is our father, this is our husband, this is our brother. We were just...
This is, for in likely many instances, this is our breadwinner.
Exactly. Charlie, it may be the case that he is a breadwinner for
a number of people. Right.
And not just the family. He does some good philanthropic work.
Yeah.
All the people who depend on his benevolence, they've been affected. And Charlie, that you are with a person in a minute. The next minute, you can't tell whether he is alive or not. If he's alive, how is he doing?
Yeah.
Even if not, what is happening to him? Look, the torture is just unbearable. Look at us. All of us in Ghana, we've been talking about him. You go to social media, a lot of people are sharing so many messages about him.
Yeah.
So at us who are not even very close to him. We've
Yeah.
only experienced him because of him playing for the national team and him being a Ghanaian playing outside there. That's how we've experienced him. How much more the people who have experienced him, like, body to body.
Yeah.
Here you are, here I am. How are they feeling? So, in fact, I don't know what we will do if by the grace of God he is found alive still.
I think it's going to be real jubilation, not just here in Ghana. There are others, his own teammates and all of that. But I'll tell you what, I have remained very optimistic, regardless of the practical call to pessimism. You know why? It had been 2 days already when we hadn't found Achu, and then we were told we had found him. So, I mean, then hope was there, 2 days. But then when we were told, by the time we were told he hadn't been found, it had now been 4 days. And you'd be asking yourself about the surrounding circumstances. If he's buried somewhere under rubble, no food, no means of sustenance, no water, is he injured? My prayer has been, Samuel, that maybe he's been found, but they just don't know this is Christian. Or maybe sometimes, who knows, he could have suffered something, maybe amnesia or something, because it's a chaotic mess across where this, about 400 kilometers. That's what it means, about 400 kilometers of a stretch affected. So I'm praying that maybe he got out, people just don't know this is Christian Achu, and maybe he's in some hospital facility. The hospitals have been swamped with people, so they can't even, I'm just hoping that he's somewhere and we just don't know, and that over time it will be confirmed that, he was actually in this facility. Because where it's got to now.
With his popularity and how the international media is covering him, I'm sure by now, all the hospitals area should probably have a hint of who Christian Achu is. And if it was anywhere, I'm sure they would have said that, no, we have this face in our facility. Look, since the issue broke, it looks like he's become one of the major faces of this disaster.
True.
CNN is covering him. BBC
the BBC,
is covering him.
Yeah,
everybody.
Newspapers, prominent newspapers across the world.
I don't know who in Europe now, especially who in Turkey, would not know, this face is probably the person they are looking for.
Yeah,
so,
but we cannot fail to hope against hope. We cannot write off. I mean, miracles happen, and we're praying for one right now.
There's something called miracle. Even if he's not been found and he's still down there, and we think that how the situation is, there might not be any means of, air getting to him. We serve a God who is able to do the unimaginable.
Yeah.
So we can't lose it. We can't lose the fact that God can really cause something to happen. You remember the case of is it the Peru miners or so?
Yeah.
Who were trapped.
Yeah.
I mean, underneath for how many miles? So many miles underground. And they were trapped for like weeks. No food, right? I may be wrong. Maybe days. No food, no water. But they survived. So, I mean, some of us cannot lose hope and cannot forget that the God we serve has done the unimaginable for us, and that he can do it for our children. So we're all hoping that we'll be able to get to him alive, and it will be one of the miracles of this century. That, he's been under the rubble for how many days? Today is like 5 days, isn't it? This Friday.
5 or 6, thereabouts. Yeah.
It'll be huge.
Maybe we'll just end this bit. As we spoke, as you mentioned, the God factor. And it is not to say that God sometimes does not oversee disasters happening to good people, because that also happens. The Bible speaks about it. When good people die, sometimes people think they've been cut off like stubble, but they will shine again. It just reminded me of Ephesians 3:20, based on which that song was sang. I've just forgotten his name. But the quote is, "Now all glory to God, who is able through his mighty power at work within us to accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think." In this instance, we are praying for infinitely more than human understanding can imagine. We're just praying. We're just praying for that. Yeah.
That defy science. Something that you cannot really explain how it happened. Like that little baby who was pulled out of the rubble, the mother had given birth to her, and
The placenta was still attached or something.
it, you can't explain how this happened.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things we are hoping for, that in fact God will do one of His miracles and get us, because so many lives depend on Him, and without Him, a lot of families will be hugely. I mean, they will suffer to even put food on the table. So
let's pray. But you know something? I was going to move on to the papers. In just about, I'm not going to take a response on this, but it just hit me. I'm looking at Turkey in Europe. Maybe not one of the most advanced countries in Europe, but pretty good in terms of their GDP, somewhere in there, and pretty prominent in terms of the location of that country. They had a similar incident in 1999, an earthquake that took about 20,000 lives then. In this instance, here we are again with another one. Syria, we all know what is happening there, Aleppo and others, and Turkey, both of them affected. Close to 20,000 lives lost already, 17,000 upwards. And I ask myself though, over the years, we've been feeling some earth tremors here in our country. When you go to the McCarthy Hill, the Wager area, these places are known to lie on fault lines. And I just pray, of course, that nothing of that sort ever happens. But knowing what we do about those areas, what are we doing? The places springing up there, the quality of buildings, are we even ensuring that if someone is putting up a building there, it is earthquake proof because there are ways of building in such areas? Or are we just waiting, arms folded, till someday? Because if you keep feeling the shocks, the tremors, time and again, just a little, it is warning that someday, and we've had earthquakes in this country before. So I'm just asking myself, what are we doing in that respect? In Turkey, one interesting point that I heard on the BBC, some of them said that, interestingly, in some places, buildings that were built with old school materials, like buildings that had been there for a long time, stood. But buildings that have been constructed with so-called new technology and all of that rather crashed, crumbled. I'm just thinking around those areas and wondering, are we waiting for disaster to happen, especially with what we know? Anyway.
We're waiting, Ben. As for this, we're doing. We're not doing anything. We're not planning anything. When it happens, you remember in December when that tremor happened? I was in the TUC building, and I felt it. And there, I started catching my stars. What am I doing here? At the time that the building was going to collapse, and I'm here. So look, in fact, we're just not doing anything. We're only building. And I'm not sure the building inspectors in that assembly are even checking whether they are building, spacing it, or even not building close to a road. They are not doing anything. We're only building. And that's our problem in this nation. When it happens, we'll only complain and that's it. So look, the reality is that I'm not sure Ghana is doing anything. What I read is that Japan or so, they've now
Japan has suffered so many earthquakes. In fact, many of their buildings are earthquake proof. They build in a certain way because they know their terrain is practically sitting on a time bomb.
Yeah, but for us, we've not done anything. We're just waiting. So let's pray that it doesn't happen. If it happens, it will be a huge disaster.
And even worse, we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the human resource. Look at even small issues that crop up and how NADMO, for example, reacts. And if something, God forbid, let's get into the papers.
But you were asking of my biggest story. I think my biggest story has to do with the.
So in about a minute and a half, and then we move on.
I mean, you remember that interaction between the pensioner, that lady, and the finance minister.
Right.
Jesus. Anytime we play it, like wow, where did this woman come from? She spoke to the heart of the minister. Anything me who is just not part of this government. I was like, what? If I were the president or the minister, after hearing this woman, I may probably have to say that, look, we're taking them out. The woman really spoke from the bottom of her heart. We don't want to be a burden on you. We don't want to be a burden on our children. We want to be a burden on ourselves. Jesus. What?
Yeah.
I
mean, Well, you've made a very important point, and sometimes you would ask yourself whether some of our leaders, well, sometimes tough decisions must be made, but is it also that sometimes we have hearts of stone that do not feel for the ordinary man? A question maybe for the gods to answer. The Daily Graphic this morning, Bolgatanga Central, home of handicraft, seek investors. 200 CEOs, board chairs brainstorm on economy and debt exchange program, government bonds down to 3 categories, age groups considered. On the back page, 6 Busumtri district communities to have new classroom blocks, and that is a good thing, especially on the back of some of the ails in the educational system that we've been highlighting with our Ghana schools of shame. And McCarthy Hill Assembly member raises concerns over blocked drains. Let's quickly get to it. So 200 CEOs, board chairs brainstorm on economy, and there have been allegations about this entire confab. But let's get into the details of the story. Chief executive officers and board chairs of specified entities, including state-owned enterprises, have gathered at Kwewu, Abetifi in the eastern region, to deliberate on how they can support the government's efforts to jumpstart the economy. The stakeholder meeting, organized by the State Interest and Governance Authority, that is SIGA, has brought together over 200 CEOs and board chairs. The Minister of Finance, Kenneth Oyata, in a speech read on his behalf by a Deputy Minister of Finance, Abno Osei-Asari, bemoaned the low level of dividends from SOEs over the last years. He said, dividend receipts from SOEs had not only been historically very low in comparison to joint ventures and mining companies. Even more worrying was the fact that the number of SOEs paying dividends and the quantum they had paid had declined sharply in recent years. And there was also talk, quoting the Director General of SIGA, he says, "We all sometimes talk as if the problem is somebody's problem and not ours. But it is our problem because if the government goes out of power, most of us, if not all, will not retain our positions." And that is a point that I found rather interesting. But let me just take this one before you come in with a response. Debt exchange program, government bonds down to 3 categories, age groups considered. That is actually the banner headline. Now, the deadline for the voluntary tendering of existing domestic bonds for new ones under the domestic debt exchange program elapsed last Tuesday, with the government settling on 3 broad categories of instruments for the new instruments. They are Category A, designed for persons below 59 years, Category B, for bondholders 59 years and above, and Category C, which captures all other bondholders, including corporate institutions such as banks, insurance companies, and fund managers. The first 2 types of bonds have their maturity periods, that is the tenor reduced from 15 to 5 years, with a coupon, that is interest pegged at 15 and 10% respectively. It goes on to talk about the different types. So type 1, a source familiar with the process at the Ministry of Finance explained to the Daily Graphic that the first category, designed for persons below 59 years, consisted of 2 bonds maturing in 2027 and 2028 with a tenor of 15 years. The second, designed for bondholders aged 59 years and above, matures in 2027 and 2028. And the bond maturing this year will be given 7 bonds instead of 12, maturing each year from 2027 until 2033. That's another 10 years to look forward to. But that one is for type 3, actually, the third category of bondholders, which will earn an average of 9% coupons until maturity in 2027. Quick reflections on these 2 stories, Sam?
Well, we've gotten to a point where the state needs this particular, agreement from bondholders to in order to secure that particular IMF deal. But I think that, and we should know that today is the deadline for the extension. I mean, so the people who hold these bonds have till today to either decide to be part of it or not. But it's a critical point. These people explain that they bought these bonds so that they can, especially the retirees, so they can take care of themselves during retirement. But this is also when government needs to cut down on, to reduce its debt burden in order to secure this IMF deal. It's such a dicey situation. On one hand, government needs the IMF deal because they say without it, the economy will crash. On the other, the bondholders also have goals for which they bought their bonds. And so it's become difficult for them to say that we are letting go when in fact there was a reason why they bought their bonds. They've been also looking for some sort of effort by the government. You know that people have been calling on government to try to do something. People have specifically said cut down on the size of government. I mean, I wonder why government has not seized the opportunity to show leadership in this instance. If I were probably the president, I've not been president before, so I don't know how it is. But from my point of view, if I was, I would have probably announced a reshuffle for reducing the government by at least half to show the commitment, because you need people to let go of their investment, right? You should also show something that, okay, I'm not just asking you to contribute something. I'm also coming to the table with it. We should also know that, emphasize that government has also, I'm told, have tried to give us that now the minister, you don't drive your V8 within Accra. You only drive it when you're going outside. I'm told that this week when the vice president was going somewhere with some ministers, they took a bus. When the SOEs, the chief executives, were also going for this conference, they took a bus together.
I think it was the vice president's travel to the Savannah region, and the other one, what I spoke about, to the eastern region, Kwewu.
Yeah. On both occasions, they use buses. It's good that we've seen that we are not in normal time, so we are trying to cut down on fuel expenditure, for example. It's good, but could the government or the president have gone ahead to say, I am announcing a major decision, which is to cut down on this size of government, so that the bondholders will see that, well, we're in difficult times. The government or the president has acknowledged that, and so he has reduced the size of his government. So can we also then consider, because if the economy becomes better for us, we will all benefit from it. But once they are not seeing that leadership from government, it becomes difficult for them. So a lot of them, when you listen to them, they are of the view that, look, you want us to come to the table with something, we have not seen anything from your end. So I don't know. Once today is the deadline, and some people holding on to their belief that we don't want to sign on to it, I wonder what this will happen. Within the week when the finance ministry was giving an update on the percentage of acceptance, they said they were above 50%, isn't it? They are looking for 80% or so.
So it was, I think it was Abna, the deputy, who mentioned that they had about 50%. So we'll see. So, eventually, I'm sure when the finance minister comes before the Speaker of Parliament and the House, we'll get some more detail on the scope, how much they've actually accrued, and what the fine detail is of this exchange program.
Anyway, yeah, I hope so. But once today is the deadline, I wonder the number of bondholders. I know some who have gone to sign on to the new deal. They feel that it is better than the previous one, so they've gone on to sign on to it. But how many of the bondholders have done so? How many will do so today, which is the deadline for the extension? So let's see how it goes. I pray that we get a lot of them to sign on to it, but government could probably have shown more leadership. I mean, it's good that they've started to pack the V8. Yesterday, I had one retiree who said that, you see this some ministers who are doing something at a certain place, and their car engine will be on throughout until they come. But he was worried by that. So you see, a bondholder like that is looking at that particular practice to say that you are enjoying, and you want me to stop and give away my enjoyment to sign on to this deal. So the bondholders are looking out for some of these things. And that's why I say if the president had announced a major reshuffle, to cut down the size of this government, maybe by half, it would have done a lot of good to this DDE program that we're looking for. So Ben, I hope that we're able to get majority of them to sign on, since today is the last day, because look, like without it and without the deal from the IMF, this economy will crash. We don't want it to. So I pray that they hear, but for these bond and buy into this deal and come on board.
In the next 6 minutes or so, let's try to capture as much as we can. Botswana warns of dangers in rush for Africa's minerals, and African governments must be wary of the risks created by rising global competition for the continent's minerals. Botswana's mines minister said, as world powers seek new sources of metals needed for the transition to a lower carbon economy. Quoting him, he says, "When there is a rush, people come in, take whatever they want to take and go, leaving gaping holes in Africa." And haven't we seen that here in Ghana as well? Lefoko Mwage, whose remit also includes energy and green technology, said this in an interview with Reuters. There's also Malawi cholera death toll crosses 1,300, and Tigray abuse allegations mere fantasy. That's according to Afwerki. This is not captured in the Daily Graphic, but there's also talk of the Malema front, in what do you call it, South Africa, and how I was listening to the BBC this morning, how they sort of hijacked Parliament when Cyril Ramaphosa was delivering his address to the nation. Interesting dynamics in there. But let's get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. Fire guts police armory, and that story on page 3. GES releases 2023 academic year calendar for public schools. And picture there, Dr. Eric Nkansa. There's $6.3 million project on safe mining launched, and hope for Achu's rescue fading out. That story on page 23. Judge expresses disquiet over criticisms of delay in Cocobot financial loss case. Let's go to page 3 and start from there. So a building suspected to be an armory of the Ghana Police Service headquarters in Accra was yesterday gutted by fire leading to explosions. No casualty was recorded. When the Ghanaian Times reporter got to the scene at about 9:45 p.m., 9:45 a.m., personnel of the Ghana National Fire Service were doing all they could to contain the fire. Traders selling around the area and police personnel were seen running to safety as explosions were heard and the smell of tear gas filled the air. Police personnel and the three-story National Operations Department of the GPS evacuated the building, bringing work to a halt, and auxiliary staff were sighted mopping water from the corridor after the fire was extinguished. There's also judge expresses disquiet over criticisms of delay in Cocobot financial loss case, and Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Clemens Jackson Honyanuga, yesterday expressed disquiet over criticisms of the delay in the trial of Dr. Stephen Kwabnopuni and Seydou Agongo. The Attorney General was reported to have stated in an interview that the trial of the duo had dragged on for 6 years, but the judge, who was sitting with additional responsibility, said the case started in May 2018 and could not be said to have delayed for 6 years. Whatever it is, whether from 2018 till now, it's still nearing 5 years, and that is still a very long time. Let me just do this other story, and then we can share our thoughts, Kojo. So $6.3 million project on safe mining launched, and the government, in collaboration with the United Nations Development Programme and United Nations Industrial Organization, yesterday launched in Accra a $6.3 million project to minimize the use of mercury in mining. The, quote, Planet Gold project is meant to make small-scale gold mining safer, cleaner, and more profitable in the country. You know how unsafe the methods are, Kojo, that are employed by some of our youth, and in fact, they are daily killing themselves by exposing themselves to these chemicals. Your quick thoughts?
Well, it is good. We've known this for quite a long time that mercury is not good. Where government has done recently, they brought in some mercury-free gold catchers. It's good we implement these things, but sometimes the implementation suffers. You know, Ghana is a country where we have beautiful policies, but when it comes to implementation, we lack it. So it's good that we are launching this policy, but I would want to see how we want to implement it, how effective the will go to ensure that we achieve goals. Because if we just do it like we do always, we won't get anywhere. You remember the disaster that happened in Apiate? There was this whole hula baloo about explosive now to be accompanied by safety personnel and fire service people, so that in case of anything, they could take charge. How are we monitoring how effective that implementation is going? Are we sure it's being done? So, I mean, the launch of the policy or initiative, whatever, is okay for me, but I'm more interested in how we will implement it. Sometimes, and most often, our challenge has to do with effective implementation of the policy that we launch in this country. So it's good we brought this one up, but let us go beyond it and look at how effective the implementation will go. When it comes to people warning Africa about mineral resources and all of that, how long have we spoken about this, Ben? We've been in this country, we've been on this continent, we've spoken about how our minerals are being exploited. But what have we done? We've not even created local giant to take advantage of, some of our natural resources. We haven't.
Right.
So really, it's about time we move from just questioning ourselves to being pragmatic about how we want to ensure that our mineral resources are not exploited by foreigners without our inclusion. We should be able to come to the table with some people. Let us be strategic about creating local design to take, because I'm not sure if a local person is exploiting it, it will be done the way a non-local person will be doing. So let's just move from talking to doing, I think. Man.
Right. Let's take a quick look at some stories from these two papers, and it's a wrap. The Daily Guide: Parliament ratifies Niamey Convention, and you can't do me Foko Okujeto tells judges. Well, the way it's captured, but that's the headline. NDC goons storm court as warmonger remanded. I have no chair in Parliament. That's according to former Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu. There was quite an interesting twist in Parliament. And AG bemoans Auditor General's premature publication. So we'll look at the story about the Niamey Convention. And Parliament passed a new convention that offers significant chances to boost security and combat terrorism by establishing cross-border cooperation with neighboring countries and strengthening Ghana's integrated border management systems. The African Union Convention on Cross-Border Cooperation, which is also known as the Niamey Convention, was ratified by Parliament yesterday in accordance with Article 75 of the Constitution, and it is intended to improve Ghana's image as a country which is committed to the African Union and ECOWAS. There's also the bit about the AG bemoaning the Auditor General's premature publication has been brought up. But yesterday, for example, when I discussed it with Bobby Banson, he read what the law states about the work of the Auditor General and how there should be no one influencing that work and how it is carried out. It's not to say he is above the law, but there are stipulations per the law, and it would appear, if you read that extract, that maybe, just maybe, the Attorney General himself might be falling foul of the law. There's also, let's do that story on page 3. Member of Parliament for Norton, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, has slammed the judiciary for granting an injunction filed by Reverend Victor Kusi-Boateng to stop him from making further publications on him and citing him for contempt. According to him, quote, I am ever ready to be a political prisoner of conscience than to be coerced and compromised into a behind-the-scenes deal with the corrosive enemies of the Republic. That was his response. Finally, the Finder newspaper. So 2 stories for you to contemplate in the Daily Guide. The Finder newspaper, page 11. That's where I'll knock off so you can share your thoughts, and we wrap. So, claims overdraft to government was exposed by IMF false. That's according to the Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana has been clarifying. It has rejected accusations that the true extent of government's overdraft was exposed by the IMF. A statement issued by the central bank explained that though the IMF team, which this word, I don't know what they're trying to say. The economy noted that this outcome is suboptimal. It was agreed that this temporal arrangement was needed as part of a comprehensive solution to be addressed in the government's economic policies and programs to be supported by the IMF. That's how we wrap it. Your quick thoughts on these three stories, whichever ones you want to reflect on.
I wonder why the AG will write to, and the Attorney General writes to the Auditor General about what he's doing in terms of that one. I mean, it was not just in his place to be writing to the Auditor General when it had published, a report about how we expended.
He says it should have gone through proper processes in Parliament before being put out there. I found that interesting.
What is proper processes here? Are we interested in proper processes, or we are interested in how the monies were expended? So it should spare us. I wonder why he even did that, really. It brings about whether we want to cajole the Auditor General not to really do a good job or whatever. But I think it was inappropriate that he did that. But I'm happy that a lot of people are saying that, well, you don't have what it takes to even order him to do it on how he can do his work. So the Attorney General should know his boundary. Allow the guy to work. He's independent. He can't get to the bottom of everything. But Ben, before I knock off, yeah?
So very quickly on that, we have to go. Very quickly.
Something happening in Ahanta, and I hope that the government will try and deal with it. The Ahanta Paramount seat is vacant now. And I'm told that they have appointed La Bianca as the acting paramount, the regent. It is generating a lot of issues.
When you say La Bianca, what do you mean? You mean the business person La Bianca, who owns La Bianca?
The CEO, the owner.
Right.
And it is generating a lot of hula baloo in Ahanta. She was recently installed as chief of Princess Town. But, it's just about 3 months ago. So if the paramount chief is not around, and she has been, a lot of people are talking about it, and I'm sure it would degenerate into something else if nothing is done. So the state should take an interest in this and look at how things will be solved amicably. At the end of the day, it's just for a hunter to progress. So all the stakeholders involved should ensure that this matter is solved amicably and it doesn't degenerate into something else.
Kojo, thank you so much for adding your refreshing opinions to the news review this morning. We're grateful and we wish you the best of the day.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
And that is my colleague and assisting editor here, Samuel Kojo Brace. The news review on the AM show is brought to you courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. We're offering free prostate screening and free female fertility screening. Locate us in Accra Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, in Kumasi, Kronoma Buehia behind the Angel Educational Complex, in Takrade Anaji Estates, in Tema Community 22, in Techiman Hansua, and in Esiama in Idzema. Call us on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And as I end and we gear up for sports, I just want to wish a very happy birthday to Dr. Elijah Kor of the Nyaho Hospital. One fantastic person. I only got to meet him recently, but an amazing person all the same. Doc, a very happy birthday to you. I wish you the very best of the day. In fact, I'll end up seeing you today, so look forward to that. On that note, let's settle for sports.